physical AI has to be reliable, interpretable, and modular.
What is it that you did differently with Andrew, which was not being done in the AI world?
Traditionally, roboticists really think of a robotics problem as a geometric problem, but that humans don't do it that way.
So Ashutosh, look, this is a season of so many catastrophes. What can your robots do in scenarios like this?
Robots can handle scenarios which a human being, they find it hazardous.
How do you teach robots to be creative and problem solving?
I think
Are these humanoid robots you are able to co-actively train? That's the term you have introduced. What are they doing differently? Why are the investors betting on you?
when it comes to physical AI, it turns out robot can be an active participant in their own learning.
How you see that world of AI and models merging? I do want to ask you one very hard question. All AI founders ask me, where is the revenue pocket for a startup founder to build startups in robotics? Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Ctrl Alt podcast. Today we have with us an AI pioneer who's rubbing shoulders with Sam Altman, Jensen Huang and Andrew Ng from Stanford University. And he's here out to make robots not only think but do things. He's also out there revolutionizing, reimagining healthcare space like never before. So let's welcome Dr. Ashutosh Saxena to Ctrl Alt podcast.
Thank you. Looking forward to the chat.
Wonderful. Dr. Saxena, you've said things like an entire home can be a robot, a platform. Who says things like that? I mean, when I read statements like that, I just know I'm talking to a pioneer in AI and you're out to do something different. Tell us what your stint was like into AI. You were from IIT Kanpur, you worked with the likes of Andrew Ng, and here today you're building Torque AGI. You're the CEO and founder of Torque AGI, robots that can think and do autonomously. Tell us all about your early training in AI. What was it like at IIT Kanpur and Stanford?
At IIT Kanpur, we were really taught how to build systems and really argue and think about robots from a first principle. So that gave us the insight how to deconstruct a real world messy problem, identify components, and that education kind of set me up for the future career. Then I came to Stanford and started working with Andrew Ng. And he's a pioneer in AI. And back then, what we worked on and what I learned from him was how to take a real world messy problem that at the first blush you won't think that it's an AI problem, but then how to frame it as an AI problem, how to get models to start producing outputs on that. That's an amazing experience I had while working with Andrew Ng. We took up some very challenging problems related to computer vision, robotics, videos, and framed it as an AI problem and built these solutions out.
Yeah, and this was Stanford Artificial Intelligence Robotics, where you spent time with him. And you are hailed as a pioneer with Andrew Ng. What is it that you did differently with Andrew, which was not being done in the AI world?
Yeah, so let's take a couple of examples. Like we were working for we're trying to show how to make a robot do completely new things like unload items from a dishwasher, autonomously drive in off-road environments, and so on and so forth. Traditionally, roboticists really think of a robotics problem as a geometric problem.
Yeah.
Right? How to make a 3D model out of it, 3D mesh, and then have geometric motion planning about it, and so on and so forth. But what we realized is, this is the insight we had, that humans don't do it that way.
Yeah.
We argue and reason in the world of concepts.
Yeah.
We go directly from perception to control.
Yeah.
So one project we did was Make 3D, where we said, hey, given a single image, can we extract depth out of it? Because if we can, a robot can drive and avoid obstacles.
Yeah, and then you know how much to move, and it kind of starts converting that image into a 3D geometry, and it figures it out on its own. That's exactly what humans do.
Right.
So, you say use the word perception. Now, I know your work with Andrew was you try to bring multiple modes of perception in one channel. So tell us about your work in multimodal training of AI models or robots.
Right. So traditionally, and even today actually, most people think of different modalities, and by modalities I mean vision or perception on how you see. planning on how you reason about things, and control or act, which is how you hold something, grab something, or change the steering wheel to drive, as three different problems.
Yeah.
Each sensor modality is thought of as a different problem, like images versus radars versus different modalities like sound.
Yeah.
But if we really think about it, these are the same concepts.
Yeah.
If you're looking at an object in the environment,
Yeah.
you can plan about it, you can reason about it, they are the same concept. That's the biggest insight we had back then when I was at Stanford, which carried forward in all of my following works in different areas.
Yeah, and here you are today, and this the compute has accelerated. The ability to your token size of windows is increased. So it is a time where your concepts, which you did with Andrew, you're giving it to life in Torque AGI. Tell us what you're doing at Torque AGI. I mean, you've been very quiet about it. So tell us, give the audience a glimpse of what your company is all about.
Right. So what we found is that the latest generative AI has a huge ability to generalize across domains, but it mostly operates in the text domain, right? Online world, maybe sometimes vision, right? But for robots, what happens is they have to operate in the real world.
Yeah.
They can get a huge advantage from generative AI.
Give us an example.
Right. For example, let's take the example of a warehouse robot trying to put items in a back of a truck.
Yeah.
It's messy. Sometimes someone would leave a bike in the back of a truck. A robot has to handle that. A human may be moving around. A box may be squished.
Yeah.
Or an agricultural robot which is trying to, for example, identify crops versus weed or pick the fruits. These are very challenging problems. If you're not a gardener, you won't know the difference between a crop and a weed. You won't know whether the apple is ripe or not.
Yeah.
And same way in the warehousing world, it's a lot of reasoning that goes into the environment.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of problems we are solving.
So there's a Moravec's paradox. Like physical AI is much harder than the AI which is in the digital world. So why is that? In what way are you falsifying Moravec's paradox?
Right. So we're not falsifying. We are actually the change makers trying to now take the advantage and disrupt the market. And it is challenging for a couple of reasons. Number one, a robotics or physical AI has to deal with different modalities of data, radar, and you have to build the right embeddings. That's a technical term when people mean how do you take that data and put it in a model.
Yeah.
But the key problem is a physical AI has to be reliable, interpretable, and modular.
Yeah.
And it has to be edge native.
Wonderful. So if you look at the physical AI which you are implementing in the warehouses, or you're talking about agriculture, I mean, really wonderful use cases, a huge market there. You were saying $1 trillion worth of market, right? So how do you do the quality control, or what are the challenges in cybersecurity? How do you make, I mean cybersecurity is more like all kinds of security that a physical machine has to deal with.
Right. So yeah, for physical AI, there are three different aspects of how to build it. Yeah. One is reliability, second one is interpretability, and edge native, which has an implication on security.
Yeah.
Reliability means that it has to do predictable things in a reliable manner.
Right.
You can't have a robot inspecting an airplane, for example, and then fail half the time, right?
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. Interpretable means it's actually even more important. So, for example, the O3 reasoning model actually argues and tells you what it is doing, but it's even more important when building physical AI, that what it is doing, why is it doing, and there's a way to trace it back to debug.
Yep.
And the last one is edge native. So at Torque AGI, we really build edge reliable models. Yeah. They do not depend on the cloud. They are running locally on the computer. It reduces the surface area of attack and makes it more.
So any threat vector in the cloud will not affect the physical AI models. Is that right?
It's heavily limited, because it's like, unless for debugging purposes in a control setting, the robot model is operating on the robot with no connection to the cloud.
Wonderful. So Ashutosh, look, this is a season of so many catastrophes. We just had an airline crash in India, which everyone's talking about, and then there is also the fire in LA. So tell us, you are armed with multimodal AI here. Robots can go into these places and make a difference in quality control, or even predicting just the data from multimodal sensors. What can your robots do in scenarios like this?
So robots can handle scenarios which a human being they find it hazardous. could be a fire environment, earthquake environment. And number two, robot and especially the robot AI or the physical AI is really good at doing mundane tasks, but while being detail oriented. And most people don't know, but every time an aircraft is pushed out of the gate, there are about 90 point inspection that you have to do every time consistently.
Wow.
From a flap to a nozzle to this to that, or a dent even, right, from a small stone. Each one of them can cause a catastrophe. And that is why we are working with some of the East Coast airports to build robots with our partner Coast Autonomous, where the robots can go around and inspect and help in those operations.
Wonderful. What is the market size we're talking about in just the airline industry or agriculture or even the other industries you're foraying into? What is it looking like?
So when we are working with our different robotic partners, we find that they are building these tractors, mining machines and robots because they cannot find people. Especially think about it's cold and dusty and the job has to be done for safety reasons. And to think about numbers, a robot can easily make $100,000 per year because it can work in 3 shifts. Right? And even if you have only 1 million robots, that's $100 billion per year market opportunity. And the reality is that 1 million robots is actually a very safe count. If you count the number of tractors, equipment, humanoid robots that can operate in warehouses, and inspection robots and so on and so forth, the number of robots is probably 40 million just in the US.
Wonderful. So some of the most respected investors in the Valley have invested in robots much ahead of other people. For example, if you look at Vinod Khosla, he invested in OpenAI, but then even before that, he had been talking about bipedal robots. So tell us, what are these humanoid robots you are able to co-actively train? That's the term you have introduced. What are they doing differently? Why are the investors betting on you?
So traditionally, they have a supervised learning where you teach a AI model what to do. You can also have reinforcement learning with human feedback. But both of these methods are really dependent on human data or human to teach a robot what to do. When it comes to physical AI, it turns out robot can be an active participant in their own learning because they are acting in the real world and they can choose to do something to learn.
So give me an example. Let's say you want to do active learning. Let's say the robot in setting up the set. How do you train it to set up?
Let's take a factory example. A humanoid robot is going, it is trying to unentangle a box and put it from one place to another. It's coming in a pile, that kind of a sorting environment. And for some reason, let's say there is a package, it doesn't know how to handle bendable packages. They get messed up, right?
Absolutely.
So what it can do is that it can actually take an action and start playing with it. And that gives, it can make a choice to learn about it in order to learn.
But in your training facilities, you do have a human, or is it fully, currently, are they autonomous already?
No, when we work with our robotic partners, in some of the cases, the robot goes through an active training phase. So they collect data, there's the opportunity for the AI to improve and really become performant for their application.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, let's go back to your career trajectory. So, Dr. Saxena, you came from IIT Kanpur, then you went to Stanford, you worked with Andrew Ng, and you were a pioneer in the multimodal AI landscape, which is directly now extrapolating to the robotic technology you're building. What happened in between? You spent time building Catapult, which is again in the financial domain, and then you moved to Casper. Can you tell us a little bit about these two startups where you're a founder and a co-founder?
So what really excited me is the impact and why and for what purpose are we building the AI. So I met my co-founder Chinedu and Brandon back at Cornell, and they were actually genuinely having a goal problem that there are a set of people, 33% to be more precise at that point in time, who do not have credit history. They're perfectly fine credit wise. They just want to take some loan to purchase important items like books or a bed for their baby which is coming. And what we built is an AI that can underwrite that leads to purchase loan. So that was called Cognical when we found it. That company became Catapult, it went public. What I learned out of that company, I was more on the AI side, is how can AI make important decisions and be reliable in an environment as hard as financial. At Casper AI, it turned out it was founded out of a personal reason related to my grandmother who was sick, and my co-founder David Cheriton, who is the first investor of Google, his father,
Wow.
who was having a problem. He was old, right? So his father, he was in a facility, and then we realized that no amount of money was solving the problem. So we decided that, hey, can the home be a robot? And what that means is, can we have ambient intelligence in a very non-intrusive way?
Yeah.
So motion sensors, radar sensors can actually predict what health problems someone might have, and that we thought is a deep impact problem. So I always ask the question, not money is good, AI technology is great, but what problem are we solving for the real world?
Amazing. This is a concept that can be taken to at so many levels. You know, a home is a robot. Can a city be a robot? Can, you know, there's network of satellites, they can act like a robot. You know, you can take it to different problems there. You know, on that note, tell us what you feel is going to be the next challenge in implementing physical AI. Like, what are the technical challenges you face? Of course, it's nice when we see a humanoid robot, it does its things effortlessly, but really you're the person building it. What challenges do you face, and what can be done to solve them?
Yeah. I think there's a basic problem with AI, which is general, that it's easy to build demos.
Yeah.
Very difficult to take it to deployment in real
Why?
product.
Why is that?
Because demos are even easier to build with generative AI technology, but when you're taking it to a fully functioning product,
Yep.
you have to make it interpretable to every user. As an example, at Casper AI, the users are nurses, they are not engineers. Now, how can they interpret the outcomes and still use it?
Yep.
So interpretability, real world variations are general AI problems.
Yeah.
A physical AI problem gets even harder,
Yep.
because the reliability is paramount,
Yeah.
safety is paramount, which what they mean is that if you are having an AI drive a robot into the real environment, it cannot crash and refuse to give an answer. It has to act in those few milliseconds and make a decision and stand behind that decision.
Yeah.
That AI has to pass the safety bar.
Yep.
And number three, the usual things apply, that it has to actually do the task, be edge native and secure, and that those aspects really make technology very different. You no longer can build and use a very large cloud as an API call to the cloud and come back.
Yeah.
You have to build models that are running on the robot,
Yeah.
and that introduces some technical challenges.
You're building models specific to the robot, to that particular vertical in which it's operating.
Oh, that's very interesting. So while the outcome is for that specific robot, the actual model is general. So I like the example you were giving about object-oriented programming.
Yep.
It's not a direct analogy, but the class
Yes.
is the master model, which is single. It is sharing things across planning, perception, different robots.
Right.
An instantiation of that model goes into each robot.
So it looks like we're just getting started here with what you can do with physical AI. These are the early days. Now, I did see your picture with Sam Altman and Jensen Huang. Amazing, the people you're rubbing shoulders with. Obviously, you come from Andrew Ng's, tutelage. But tell us what Nvidia is doing to support pioneers in robotics like you, and what kind of infrastructure do they provide, and where is it headed?
Jensen has a great vision, right? They are the leaders, change makers in building the best GPUs on the planet,
Yep.
way ahead of the people. But the second thing, which is far more important for us and different verticals, is that they are showing and making it a software platform how to use that hardware for different verticals, like robotics, healthcare, this and that.
Yep.
And then what happens in robotics is they really build these simulation libraries
Yep.
and edge computers. So Nvidia is our trusted partner. We work with them to test our robot AI in the simulation environment. We also test it on the robotics, but also we have deep integration with their deep tech level to make our transformers run even faster.
Yeah. And how big are your training models? Like, can you compare them with the larger models, or are you more conservative? You keep your models slick, the token size and such.
So actually now the nice thing is that you can have a very large model parameter size
Yep.
in like 20 billion, 40 billion or even more.
Yeah.
But when you are building it for the robot, you can selectively freeze parameters, quantize them, so they can still fit in a small Nvidia computer.
And power constraints which you deal with, because a robot is a machine at the end of the day and it consumes power. And how are you dealing with the power constraints? What are you doing to overcome those challenges?
So let's look at the outcome per day for a robot. Let's say a robot works for 16 hours a day, and it gets interrupted every hour for half an hour. Then it's basically wasting power for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Now with our more performant model, we may increase the power consumption by a little bit. For the robot, it may be a 1% increase in power.
Yeah.
But now it's performing twice as much.
Yeah.
So that's actually a huge savings we are bringing from an energy perspective.
Wonderful. And I know we talked about Meta and you love their glasses. So tell us how you see that world of AI and models merging. Like,
no, this is actually great. I think I really love when industries are moving together, right? So one of the reasons for RoboBrain going back was we had Wikipedia for texts, right? Like, we are merging the knowledge, and then same way you can merge the knowledge for robots, and it became Wikipedia for robots. And now what's happening is we are seeing similar synergies between AR and robotics, hardware and AI models.
Wow.
So augmented reality, meta goggles, and so on and so forth, they're trying to make certain vision models fit locally in your glasses, although there's much more flexibility in cloud connection in those cases, right?
So you're saying the vision language model is merging with the action models. Is that what you call it?
Right. So for glasses, I think there's little action. It's primarily vision language models that go into the AR glasses. But with robots, the vision language action part becomes key.
So is that something you started, vision language action models?
Yeah. So actually at RoboBrain, we had a very insight. So on the first blush, it's just a Wikipedia for robots, right?
Yep.
You're bringing in experiences of different robots and data sets together, and that's like the first thing that comes to mind of doing that, what we are doing at Torque, or earlier as a research project, RoboBrain, right? There was a deeper insight there. Mm-hmm. What happens is we think of problems as distinct problems in robotics, like vision, find the object, planning, figure out how can I do it, control, how do I move my hand to grab it?
Yep.
But it turns out these actually belong to the same shared latent space. They're the same concept for the model. You are just learning about it in different ways.
I like that.
And that's actually what is a vision language action model, where vision, language, action, deep within the transformer architecture have the same representation.
Yeah. You know, when you talked about this, I had a conversation with the Stanford human-centric AI, and I was like, why is it human-centric? You know, it should be centered around humans and objects both. And you're talking about vision language action model where it's not just humans, your robots are also part of this entire ambient space, right?
And they do work for humans.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think when we built the AI for Casper, it's going over people's behaviors, how they move around in the environment with the radar sensors.
So it is human-centric.
It's like arguing about humans. It's interpreted by humans. Now, if you think about robots at Torque AGI, those tractors are actually tilling someone's real farm.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Or help working alongside a human in a warehouse environment, or helping a human in firefighting or mining scenarios.
So it's a human AI cooperative world that we're getting into.
That's how it will be. Robots will be a co-pilot to humans, I think. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. We are the kings and queens, and they are serving us. So we've got robots serving humans.
I think there is some argument about being respectful, and the funny thing that is most people are now very respectful to ChatGPT.
Oh my God! Yeah. They're going to be citizens soon. They'll have an identity, and we have to have laws. Isaac Asimov laws. How do you treat robots, and how do robots treat you, right? On that note, I do want to ask you a very hot question. All AI founders ask me, where is the revenue pocket for a startup founder to build startups in robotics? What are the hot pockets to target?
Right. I think there are really like three layers that we can think about. One is the hardware enablement layer, like Nvidia, a robotic hardware, a motor. Nvidia, they're solving different problems.
Yeah.
Then you can think about it in a vertical manner. So for most robotics founders, it pays to be hyper focused if you are solving an end solution.
But you're not.
We are not. So we are taking an interesting position that we happen to be experts in AI for robots. So we have built a generalized model that can help numerous companies across the board, but we are strictly taking a software-only approach at Torque AGI.
So you're a platform.
We're a platform. We have a layer on top of Nvidia, a very powerful layer. Nvidia is our hardware enablement simulation partner. We are building models that send end-to-end problems, but there is still a software component for the vertical robot solution builder.
Wonderful. So, Dr. Saxena, you visit many universities, even though you were assistant professor in the past at Cornell. What are your engagements with universities like, and what kind of founders are you finding in the universities these days?
So I think there's a lot of innovation happening at universities. As an example, I am still sometimes on the PhD committee of a Stanford professor. There's Professor Ehsan Adeli,
Amazing.
who is building healthcare tech and revolutionizing it, working at Casper with it. We actually are sponsoring a robotics science and systems workshop. 10 years back, we wrote a paper which brought deep learning to robotics for grasping. And with Professor Ran Salu at Arizona State University, we are inviting professors from CMU. We are really answering the question, when you're building foundation models for robots, how do you make them reliable? How do you test them?
Amazing. And looks like foundation models, understanding them, what they look like in the physical world, that's like challenging. Foundation models are going to be multimodal, is that right?
Oh, by definition, yes. And that's the challenge, because the current AI models are discrete tokenization of text.
Right.
And robotic data happens to be spatiotemporal and continuous, and it's not exactly clear how to embed planning and control into the same model, which is what an area of innovation.
So Dr. Saxena, let's talk about some of these investment opportunities in generative AI. Here you are a founder in the Gen AI space, but you're also investing in companies in the generative AI space. So tell us where these investment pockets are, and how does generative AI as a technology solve problems worth investing in?
I'm really excited about the potential of generative AI, and I am highly supportive and look forward to companies that are revolutionizing certain verticals.
Okay.
And the opportunity is not 20% improvement, it's like 1000x level of improvement.
Wow. Tell us an example, please. We'd love to.
So one of the companies I'm part of as an advisor investor is a Moore AI lab. And they are completely revolutionizing how chip design and verification happens.
Wow.
So in some sense, they're a vibe coding for chip design, but they are also could be fully automating certain processes, and they can bring US chip design to the forefront.
So that's an incredible investment. So you're saying what Nvidia does, they're trying to accelerate it with generative AI, is that right?
Exactly. So they can be, time to market becomes weeks versus years of the development time frame.
So this is generative AI applied to physical AI because you're printing chips.
No, you're designing chips. So it does help us. So it kind of dots connect to each other. So the AI which helps Nvidia or any other company to design chips faster helps that, and that in turn helps robotics and us.
Yeah, I mean, you are a generative AI startup yourself, but you're doing something very deterministic like robotics. How do you build predictability with Gen AI models? I hear they can go haywire or their outcomes are unpredictable. So how do you make it work predictably? What are some of the challenges or tips or tricks?
I think a couple of things are by design. So while it's a large model, you have to build the modules or agents interpretable by design and separated. So each agent is part of a bigger model or uses a bigger model, but it has precise prompting and certain properties.
Yeah.
And second one is heavy duty Q&A and safety bar before you release the models or agents into the field.
Yeah, you use the word agents. Now I'm curious, already robots are in the physical AI space, they're doing things. Now imagine you introduce an agent which is without your intervention is going to sit as a layer and prompt the robot to do things. What is your approach to integrating agents in the robotic spatiotemporal space, the robotic ecosystem?
Right. Robots are actually not immune to agents. They have been using different form of agents in the past. Like for example, an agent in robot would, like multi-agent architectures in robotics, they would say, oh, I want to do planning here. They start a planning module or an agent and it does something. It happened to be the case that those agents or modules were fully independent, traditional software based.
Yeah.
But now what is happening is you are building an agent which is based on a model.
Yeah.
It uses certain things like memory, tool use, and so on and so forth. and does the same thing but with much more capabilities.
Yeah, so this was not used as interchange. See, agent is a word used in English language for someone who is undercover and does things, solves complex problems. So this is not used interchangeably. There were actually agents back in the day which you used in robotics, is that right?
Right, they were not necessarily Gen AI agents, so they were using very simple learning, or in some cases even handwritten agent.
Yep.
But agent is really something that it gives certain properties, like it retains a state or memory, it has certain tools at hand. And with robotics, this actually becomes very interesting. So if you're building a verification engineering AI, you would want to give a verification design module as a tool use.
Yeah.
For making a balance sheet financial AI, you want to give a calculator as a tool. But for robotics, you want to do a physics simple simulator module as a tool to the AI. So that's what an agent does.
Yeah.
It would have certain libraries to use, it would have a certain context, certain prompt, and use the model in a manner that does the job.
Amazing. So you're building a generalized robotic, I would say, knowledge base. It's a Wikipedia for robots to act, correct? Are you ever going to move beyond acting space? Like, are you going to, you gave so many examples of different verticals. Are you going to merge them with different verticals? For example, a robot which is today maybe reading books, will it also be working in an airport and use the knowledge it read from the books to?
Oh, it's already happening actually. So we are seeing some amazing kinds of transfer. I can give a few examples. Yeah.
This is what you did in RoboBrain, or it's?
No, this is at Torque AGI.
Okay,
so let me start with RoboBrain.
Yeah.
So one funny thing that a very interesting thing we did back then was a robot at Cornell was able to figure out how to operate a cappuccino machine, upload its knowledge, and then at Stanford where the server was hosted, then a robot at Brown University was able to download that and use a different machine. That was like very insightful, that level of transfer.
Amazing.
And at Torque AGI, we are seeing something similar. We were working with the agricultural client where you have to really make those finer distinction between plants. And then we started working in construction space where you have to find out those imperfections and a robot has to walk. And the transfer from walking in dirt, mud environments and identifying plants to walking in steel and that kind of environment and identifying construction was not expected, but very surprising when it happened.
Oh my God. So this is an emergent property.
Oh yeah, so
good way.
In a good way. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. You were just talking about the agriculture field. I was thinking the medical space, diagnosing diseases. People have to touch and feel the patient. They have to be physically present to diagnose. I mean, at least if it's not a radiology report. So what can robots do here? I know that. I worked in a company where many hospitals collaborated on the medical reports and the scans, and it was a tremendous amount of data they had to deal with. Scans and MRI files are like so huge, CAT scans are huge. Where is this headed in the healthcare space? This kind of thinking, if you extend it to the healthcare space?
In both spaces, I think the very powerful use of AI is the large context it can use and see these patterns across space and time. In healthcare space, what happened is one of the patients at Casper AI had their heart rate normal when the nurse measured it at their measurement time 6 p.m. But when we did continuous measurement, there was a very interesting pattern. The heart rate spiked to 2x. Wow. Because there was a medication reaction. We have found numerous UTI detections which you would miss otherwise. It's a very subtle change in bathroom frequency, rolling around in the bed, and respiration changes. So Casper AI is finding these long-term context and escalating it for doctors' use. It turns out doctors are really loaded, at least in the US. They don't have time to look at months of data and analyze it. Bringing it back to robotics, like the airport example, it is a very tedious job where you cannot miss even one of the 90 inspection points for an airplane for every single time the aircraft is pushed off the gate.
Yeah.
You make one mistake and it's dangerous. Yeah. And that is what robots and AI is useful for.
Yeah, amazing. I want to ask one question, maybe slightly off the cuff, but how do you teach robots to be creative in problem solving? Is that something you would ever do?
I think the
collaborative robots, you would have put them on the field, but they know that they could collaborate and do something which they can't do alone.
I think during training time, you want to create an environment where they can collaborate and learn. But once it passes the deployment stage, you actually want to avoid collaboration and put them in a box, put the AI in a box, so it can do predictable things.
Yeah, but the collaboration thing is happening with drones. I think a lot of labs are experimenting with drones doing things collaboratively, like extinguishing fires collaboratively, sensing it real time and things like that.
Right.
So this is an exciting emerging space, and you seem to be very good in knowing where the guardrails should go. And the QA and the testing, the QC, you got that figured out.
That I think is the fundamental premise of physical AI.
Wonderful.
You said it right.
What trends you're seeing in terms of the future of AI? Where is it headed? Here you are sitting in Silicon Valley. You built 3 amazing companies, and you're disrupting the field of robotics using generative AI, and you have a Wikipedia for robots. So tell us where the space is headed. How do you perceive it?
I think generative AI is really revolutionizing how things are changing in different verticals. At Torque AGI, what is happening is it's a $10 trillion market opportunity. Millions of robots is trillions of market value, and it could be even larger. So at Torque AGI, we are building models that can support and solve some critical problems ranging from food security by agriculture, hazardous environments like mines and fire extinguishing, and pretty safety critical applications like aircraft inspection or difficult environment figuring out if something is wrong. So I think that in general, the generative AI presents huge potential, and it's a great opportunity for founders to invest in it, build vertical applications, and come out of it.
Wonderful. Coming from you, this will inspire many founders and investors to take this route. So on that note, a quick rapid fire question, and then I do want to know what are some of your thoughts on what IITs are like, what they bring to the table. Here you are in Silicon Valley, pioneering a new multimodal AI domain for robotics, and it's a whole new chapter in AI. You're pioneering that with fellow inventors, innovators. So I do want to go over that, but before that, a quick rapid fire question. So what does Dr. Saxena do when he's not working?
I do hiking. I try to build contraptions to show it to kids and kind of just play with it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what's your favorite movie?
I think that would be the Iron Man movie. So love, especially the first one. So yeah.
So you're still a kid at the heart, but you're realizing your dream of becoming an Iron Man. Soon you'll get there. We'll see you with armors. Soon we'll see that.
Or we'll build the Jarvis or the AI for the Iron Man. Yeah.
There you go. So you were telling me all those funny sequences in your life. You tried to do things, you could not do it, so you built an AI for that. So give us some instances of things it could not do.
Yeah, I mean, these days, very recently, I have set up these agents that do daily work at company or for me, like some things that you don't want to do and need fast answer, from contract review to figuring out how to strategy for technical implementations and so on and so forth. Back then, I didn't like unloading a dishwasher. So among many things, that was one of the problems. I don't think most people enjoy that.
Very, very useful. Every home should have that robot. We'll talk about it now off start, okay? So amazing. And what are some of the hobbies which you seem to have? Hobbies as in your passions or hobbies?
I think I love hiking, going on trips, and I think generally water sports. So
water sports, okay, wonderful. Yeah. On that note, we'll move on to the last segment where we want to talk about Dr. Saxena's vision of education. Here you are from IIT Kanpur, and you have really fond memories of how you built your thinking, your fundamentals of problem solving. And what is it you owe to IIT Kanpur? What was it like, and what is your advice to people who are setting up the curriculum for the future?
I think actually surprising how education and how you design the large scale models are similar. So that kind of, let's go one by one. So one thing that I think we learn and a model should learn is skills, which is
Are you kidding me? Model should learn skills?
Yeah, so skills are like tool use in a model, right?
You mean the coactive learning, where it's learning on its own?
Or just using a calculator. So you can prompt a model to explicitly use a calculator and it will stop making numerical mistakes.
Wow. Okay.
So that's calculator is a simple tool.
Of
And
course.
for us, like we learn addition, subtraction in kindergarten. In IIT, I love that we were really ingrained with differential calculus and so on in our freshman schools. So by that token, Stanford graduate classes were actually easy.
Yeah.
But the second thing I think, which was far more important, I found in IIT, what I implemented at Cornell and learned from Stanford, were projects that took a real world problem and taught you how to approach them.
Yeah.
So I loved the Stephen Boyd's class on systems, where he would make a very complex control matrix a very simple linear algebra operation, and you kind of really start seeing it that way. At IITs, we were having fun building these projects, very complex projects, whether they are circuit design problems, big software projects.
You had fun doing it.
We're working
It scares me.
You're working with people, building these things, right? So I think that's the second aspect of education, which is just practicing how to solve problems.
Yeah. So making the hard part fun. If you give enough context, you'll enjoy doing it.
Actually, I know a couple of education startups who are really trying to make it fun. So one of them I'm a big fan of is Moonpreneur.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh yeah, and I think they are trying to make it fun for the same thing, but just more fun.
Yeah, amazing. Great insight. I'm sure people from IIT Kanpur will be watching this. They'll know what the element of play can do here in Silicon Valley for an IIT and what it means. Right. This is, for you it is work, but it is also play. You enjoy your work. That's what I gathered after so many conversations with you. I think you enjoy your work. So on that note, if you were to contrast your education at IIT and Stanford, like, is there something different, or you suggest that either of the institutions can learn from each other, because you've obviously done very well in both ecosystems?
Yeah, I think generally I think that the skills or curriculum at IITs is much stronger and thorough than Stanford and Cornell. I think the US education is little bit can catch up from other countries on there are some basic skills, right, like mathematics and STEM and even just social sciences, right? The curriculum was much more thorough at IIT Kanpur. On the flip side, I thought that IIT Kanpur gave students the opportunity to build things and do it, but it was not part of the curriculum. It was very little, few classes towards the final year.
So many people didn't take interest.
Many people didn't do it, and then they come back and say, "Oh, I was just chasing numbers."
Yeah, which is not true.
Which is not true. You had the opportunity, but at Stanford, what I really liked is that by design, even the undergrad classes had a pretty strong project component, a building component.
Yeah, amazing. There you are, inventor, builder, and investor, and the list goes on. You have so many accolades. What is the one thing you want to tell the next generation who wants to push the boundaries, push the limits? Here you are in Silicon Valley, considered at the bleeding edge of technology changes. People come to you for advice, people look up to you, people invest in you. What is your advice?
I think a couple of advices. I think it's actually, this is one of the few times where generative AI gives you the ability to solve very difficult problems. Yeah. For founders, we should really be chasing solving the problem. Some people mistake it with raising money as the goal, but that's not the case. The goal should be how to solve a problem.
Wonderful. And you did have one bit of advice for people who build POCs with generative AI. What should they do to make sure that it is implemented properly end to end, so it's production quality?
Right. I think customer empathy is the key. So you should not be building a demo for fundraising purposes. That's fine as a convincing step, but the next part is really your users are most likely be people who have not built the tech. So having that customer empathy on what it takes for them to solve it, the workflows, the reliability, that's the key.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your valuable past hour you spent with us. We learned a lot. This was extremely insightful, and hopefully we'll see you again next time.
Thanks.
Wonderful.